met yesterday. So I think today is quite an interesting subject, how to get beyond the borders. I'll give you a brief introduction of what we're going to discuss today. I'll also introduce the panel, just let them get settled, and then every one of them will give you a brief introduction of what they do. But basically what we want to discuss is how to get beyond the border. Now there are two ways to tackle this. First of all, I don't believe there are any borders anymore, all right? You can operate online, you can market yourself online, you can sell services, products, all online. But yet for today, we want to discuss not only how do you as a Omani SME or an entrepreneur export your ideas or your product from Oman, but also try and set up outside of Oman, all right? We as a company, we have an office. I mean, I was shocked that we have German counsel here in Oman because we're setting up an office in Germany itself, in Munich, to try to do the opposite of what they're doing. We're trying to, how do you say it? We're trying to find interested projects that are in Germany and try to bring them back to Oman, all right? But then yet we cannot give them like Dubai and Abu Dhabi a free trade zone. So, but we will try to go into partnerships. But this is where we need to think. If you're an entrepreneur, first of all, do you have a vision? It's not about I want to set a company to make more money. There are three types of companies that you set. There's a company where you just want to make an extra income aside of your job. There's a company where you want to live, grow, and have a vision for. And then there are companies that you just do to get the loan and just do some money on the side and pay for your car or whatever, all right? The first thing for you to be an entrepreneur, you should have a vision. Believe in that vision. Be passionate about that vision. It could be something you do. You could be an engineer, and now you decide that you want to do on your own stuff. You can be an employee, but you're an artist, and you feel you can export that art, all right? So the first thing, you need to have a vision. Your customers need to understand your vision. Your employees need to understand the vision, but I'm going to go into customers. If your customer just thinks you're going to sell them something for you to make money, they're not going to care, all right? You want to tell your customer that you're there to create and add value for them, all right? You got to find that gap. You got to find that product or service that doesn't exist, or at least there is a niche. If there's no niche, you're going to make your niche, all right? It's not about luck. It's about hard work. Now, today we will talk about this. We'll talk about what the government is doing at the moment. I mean, the Omani government has done a lot. I know a lot of people criticize, but let's stop criticizing. Let's start going into what really needs to be done. So today we have Ms. Nasima Al Balushi. She's from the Omani ITHRA. I would call it ITHRA. She's the Director General of Export Promotion. You got an organization that already is there for that, all right? And then we have Ms. Sherry. She's from Startup Oman. She will share her ideas as a Canadian who went beyond the border to come to Oman. So you look at the opposite side of things. And then we have Mr. Pankaj Khimji with their group, with their company. They have expanded beyond the borders. They're an Omani-based company that now has expanded. And now they have the strength, but you also could use part of their ideas, all right? And we have Mr. Nick, who I believe he was the ex-CEO of Shell in Oman. Yes, long time ago. And he can also add some ideas between how the UK forum and Omani forum can work together, all right? But just remember, we're not here to just talk. So we will tackle some issues, and then we will try to come up with some ideas, all right? But at the end of the day, it's you. Moving into a new market is not an easy job. You will not have the Omani government support. Funds will not fund you to get out of Oman. If you want to get out, not export, all right? So do you have the passion to get out? And that's what you need to ask yourself. Do you have the ability to survive, let's say, Dubai? Do you have that in you? Do you believe you can do that? So this is what we'll try to tackle today, and then we will see what we come up with. So I will start by everybody just introducing themselves to the panel, to the people. I'll start with you, Mr. Nick.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure if we're on, but is that working? Yeah. Well, I was with Shell indeed, and in that time I had Interlaken under my wings for about 4 years. I was involved in the startup. Hello, is that all right? I was involved in the startup of Grofin for a couple of years. And I'm now, like all old retired people, sitting on a few boards and enjoying life, playing golf. But I am also this is a very serious subject for me, partly because of the past, partly because of the future. And I was thinking coming here, there are very few Omani successful SMEs outside the oil sector. And it's the oil sector I am not going to talk about today. And then I suddenly was talking to somebody who's starting up a business in Nottingham, which was terrific. Also realized that I'm doing the same thing in England with a number of Omani and British investors. But don't listen too hard to me, because 18 months ago I helped somebody set up a joint venture in Mosul when oil was at $95. Thank you.
I would like to introduce myself, Nasima Al Balushi. I am the Director General of Expo Development from a government organization that is called ITHRA. It's the branding for the Public Authority for Investment Promotion and Expo Development. We are there since 1996. We are helping the Omani non-oil producers into entering different international markets. We have different tools that we provide to them in order to be able to enter the international market, whether it is by participation in the international exhibitions, also the B2B meetings. The last B2B that we had was in India. We took around 4 sectors from the non-oil producers into India. Alhamdulillah, there are many Omani SMEs was part of that, and they were also able to make some sort of deals, exporting deals to the Indian market. The other services that we provide also is the market information for the SMEs through different tools that we have. We have many workshops. One of the ladies was talking today in the morning. She said that what we need is the workshops and seminars, and because this will build their capacity building tool. And I agree with her. One of the tools that we should use for the SMEs, especially if they are startups, is providing the information to them. This is basically what we are offering.
Good afternoon, everybody. As many of you already know, I'm Sherry Colbourne, Managing Partner of Startup Oman. But before I came to Oman, I was a Canadian executive in the high-tech sector. So my entire career has been working for businesses that are international in their approach to their business. So for me, I guess I've never really thought of a business as being anything but international. So that's probably my bias. When I became an entrepreneur about 15 years ago, the company that I created was also an internationally focused company. It really never dawned on me to stay within my backyard. Being a Canadian living next door to the behemoth called America, you know, to just be a person doing business in Canada, it's a small market. We have, 40 million people against their 400 million. So from a business perspective, bigger's always better. So we always look past our border. I'm hoping that we can encourage through this discussion today for Omani entrepreneurs to not think of Oman as their only market. There's the Gulf, there's MENA, there's the world, and there's no reason why you shouldn't think of the world as your oyster. So that's all I'll say, and I'll push on.
Good afternoon. My name is Pankaj Khimji. I'm from a business family background. As we heard from the previous presentation, most SMEs start off as a family business, and started by a business family. Mine too started the same way. Now, if you break down the group that we have, we do not manufacture. We are not really into the services sector. Then what do? We basically import goods, and we have the art of distribution. We didn't realize that we were a good distributor till our principals told us that you're damn good. Can you replicate the same distribution gold standards that you set in Oman in India? And they handheld us and took us to India. My first gut reaction was that Indians do not have stomach to digest India. Will I have the same? But it's a learning, and I'll share that with you later. But more than happy. But let's move on.
Sure,
Dr. Jalal.
thanks. I mean, thanks all. I mean, you can see we have a diverse panel over here. I will also moderate with them, and I'll add some of my experience as what he just said and how we got out of Oman and why we got out of Oman, because to answer some of the questions that were asked about the meltdown crisis in 2008. Now, our first question would be for the panel, all right? Do you guys think that we have the right culture and mindset in entrepreneurs to get out of Oman? What do you think? I mean, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't dwell too much perhaps on culture. I'm not managing this very well. I wouldn't dwell too much on culture, because I think as soon as people start thinking about culture, it kind of constrains them because they think I ought to behave in a certain way. We've heard from around here a number of people who I would cheerfully employ because they are clearly very bright, forward-looking people who are more than capable of going out there. I think there is one thing that perhaps is lacking a bit. And it's not personal culture. It is that Oman, and I've lived here 17 years, is a lovely, protected little environment. And if you go outside Oman, it's suddenly very drafty. So you've got to understand where you are being protected. I'll give you one example, then I'll shut up. Agencies. There are a lot of companies that have built big businesses on agencies. Jolly good luck to them. But things have shifted. And if I want to buy a wall drill or a jackhammer, I don't go to an Omani company. I look on the internet, and I go to the States. And in the States, it's about a third the price. You then send it, the company will then send it to a PO box, and DHL brings it to me a week later. So don't get into those sorts of businesses. Look ahead, not backward.
Thank you, because we do the same. So
Oh, do
I
you?
understand you, yeah. I mean, just to add, anybody else has to add anything on him, please?
Through our interaction with the SMEs per se, I would like to say that most of them are risk averse. We tried really to change this way of thinking, and even the mentality of our exporters or even the SMEs. They are afraid to go internationally. They would rather prefer to sell their products or services within the local market. So I think this culture needs to be changed, and we tried that through the information that we are providing to them, because I think the more information they get, the more confident they will get in changing the culture or their way of thinking for selling their products. So through also the seminars and the workshops and the example of success stories, I think the SMEs will be more encouraged and to enter the market. So it's not something difficult. I think most of the business SMEs that enter the business, their aim is to get a profit at the end, as well as serving the economy. So all of these objectives, they could achieve it if they really looked beyond the local market. If they went internationally, I think they will stay even longer in their business.
Thank you. I mean, anybody wants to add anything on this point? All right. What I think is, I mean, the gentleman from the events management company was saying today that because of the oil price crisis, some companies are holding back, right? But if you manage to market it online, I mean, would you think that you can compete in a market like Dubai? What would help you? I'll come back to you during the Q&A. But this is what I'm trying to say. I mean, if he wants to get out of Oman, all right, and this takes us to our second question, do you think the government can support them, or do you think also private sector can support them? And why I say this, I mean, what we do usually is when somebody comes to us, it's in Dubai, I mean, we're just starting up in Oman, but when somebody comes to us to Dubai and they want to enter a market, what we do is we partner with them. It's not for free. I mean, we also need to create our own wealth. But what we do is we give them the brief analysis of that country. Now, we're a company, so we take shares, we get paid. But can the Omani government provide that? Do you have, I understand you guys take them to exhibitions, you give them lower cost stands and everything. But from the government side, because this is our second question, what do you think the government can do other than workshops? If I now want to expand my events management company, I come to you and I say, my target market is Dubai. What can you as the Omani government give him?
One of the services and the tools that we are providing for the Omani exporters, let me say, is the market studies. we have the export strategy has identified specific number of countries or markets that has a potential for the Omani products. As well as we have certain products, we call them like we have target markets and thrust product, we call them. So we have, in every year, we conduct around like 2 market studies. And these market studies will give you the full information about the market, the mode of entering the market, the competition there, the prices for your products, and what you are supposed to do in terms of the pricing, in terms of even changing your products specifications in order to enter that market. We have this sort of studies.
This is all concentrated on manufacturing, exporting stuff.
Yeah.
So it doesn't touch the services part. And it talks about export, not actually moving your company and opening a branch somewhere else.
No, actually we are encouraging the export.
Yes,
to
but
improve
don't
the
you
trade.
think that what Ms. Sherry just said, it's quite risky for you and as an entrepreneur to just depend on Oman, even if you're exporting. I mean, right now, yesterday we heard a lot of people complaining about the cost of labor, all right? His Excellency was talking about not SMEs and entrepreneurs just complaining that I cannot get labor. What we want, as he said correctly, you need to attract talent, right? And for you to attract talent, you need to have the wealth as a company. So instead of hiring a blue collar, somebody for 180 riyals, okay, what you need to think about is attract talent to your company, somebody that will grow your company. And that person, by the way, won't come less than 1,000 riyals, all right? They won't. We tried this a lot of times from Dubai to convince talented people to come work for us in Oman. And their salary starts from 2,000 all the way up. So if you're complaining that you're having to hire Omani for 350 or 650, think about the costs of companies that are abroad, all right? Now, I will come back to this, because when yesterday one of the audience, she said, she compared Oman to Dubai, and she said the SME contribute up to 70-something% in Dubai. Let's break it down. Give us how many SMEs that are run and owned by locals in the UAE are supporting the SME, okay? What you're looking in Dubai is a total different piece of cake, all right? Dubai has a lot of foreign expat SMEs, and they are the people that are generating the money, all right? Not locals. So we're a lot better off, right? We get the support of people like Ithra. They can support you, and this is where we want to head. So they're doing that part of the job. This is when yesterday people were saying we don't want talk, we want action. Now there is an action. And people who don't know, you can always visit Istra. I mean, I visit their website frequently. They have all the studies on it. They have all the stuff that you require for both Omanis and also attracting FDI into the country, foreign direct investment. All right. So this moves us to the third question. All right. So we spoke about what the government is doing. We spoke about the mindset and also the culture. Now, what do you think? And I'll ask you, what do you think we need? Do you think we need more education, more mentoring to those people, to young entrepreneurs, for them to understand they must have a vision to get out? From your own experience, what do you think? And we will all share.
I think the most important thing about going beyond your borders is got to be hand-holding, mentoring. Who do we need? We are thankful that we have organizations like Ithra and our MOCI, etc. But more than that, I think what you need is a little more hand-holding in terms of the financial stability, a little bit of fiscal discipline on showing and guiding the way, because entering any market is a very expensive, a very frightful experience. Whether it's for an individual taking his services there or whether a large conglomerate, it's all about investment. So if they can tie up with a local organization here or across the border, half the battle won. Yes. So I think if you want to go beyond borders, tie up, joint venture with a like-minded person. If you are in the business of knowledge, then get somebody who has got finance, because then you complement.
Let me tell you one thing. Do you think that if some of the funds, I mean, most of the funds here are government-owned, right? Do you think it would be beneficial if they just put an add-on product, whichever fund? I mean, we're looking at funds that have 1.2 billion riyals, all right, that are investing in the country. You have Rafad, with their investment, 70, 80 million reals, and then you have the SME development fund. Do you think it's about time that they start providing the finance? Because you're right. I mean, moving out of the border was the most expensive thing I've ever done. All right, it costed me an arm and a leg. But you learn, all right? Now, some people are lucky, you could find somebody to tie with. We didn't. So we had to start from scratch. But with people like ITHRA, if I knew about them, I would have gone to them. But now you have the data from ITHRA, you have the market study analysis from ITHRA. Do you think it's time that SME funds in Oman can finance people to get out? Not startups, but somebody that it was a startup, now is an SME, and wants to expand. Do you think that would help?
It definitely will help, but like I said, it's not only about the finance thing, it's also the hand-holding, showing the way. Because when you go across the border, you're in a dark zone. It's an unknown territory. So having somebody who understands that market across the border is also equally important, along with the financial help. So having a fund would be amazing, to say, okay, we're right behind you, we'll help you out for the first year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, when you get there, how do you go about marketing yourself? How do you go about addressing your products or your services to the local people on that side? So that's, I think, the biggest challenge, other than the financial challenge.
I understand. Now, coming back to what we were discussing yesterday, when we explained what's the difference between funds, banks, and venture capital. Now, venture capital, usually they will do the hand-holding because they want their money back. Unfortunately, we don't have venture capital in Oman, all right? But then we have, like the AHK, today I found out. So if an Omani wants to expand to Germany, they would be the right people to go to. Now, do you think that this could be marketed through the SME, private authority or public authority of SME, telling people how you can expand, all right? Having the Chamber of Commerce, I understand they have a lot of committees, right? Now, the gentleman from India, he was talking about a committee with the Chamber of Commerce, vice versa. India is a strong market. I don't advise right now, but you have, like what Sherry was saying and what Ms. Nasima was saying, you have region. You have the Middle East, you have the MENA region, all right? Do you think that setting up, or at least using one of the funds to set up, or government-wise, to set up a public authority, you know, or a tiny Chamber of Commerce like what the AHK has, a Omani, privatized as what they have, non-government organization that helps entrepreneurs enter other markets, handhold, like you said, move them into the market, into certain markets that you understand. And why I say this is because it exists in the UAE. When we wanted to expand into Qatar, for example, we went to the Chamber of Commerce of the UAE. They helped us with everything. Now, we know that we have commercial attaché in every embassy, you know, Omani embassy out of Oman, correct? I need your advice. What do you think? Now, we're coming to solutions part. What do you think the government should do? So I'll ask you, Ms. Nasima, and then I'll come back to you and anybody on the panel. What do you think the private sector could do? So as a public authority or a government, what do you think we can do as Omani government to help them expand?
Through the different tools that I was talking about, our aim is to help them increase the exporting outside the country in order to improve the trade balance of the country. But when we come to the role of the chamber, Oman Chamber, actually they are helping many companies in terms of exporting and importing. I think as a government, we should have some sort of collaborative initiative, or authority, maybe we can say it, that is providing most of the services and help to the SMEs, starting from the promotion till funding. And expanding outside the country, even they could start by having the, because if you study the behavior of exporters, usually they start being as irregular exporters at the beginning, and then they start to become as regular exporters. Then when they feel the confidence into the market, they go for sales agent. Later on, if they feel that they have an existence in the market and there is a demand for their market, they should go to another further stage, which is having a sales subsidiary. This could be done by themselves as individuals, or maybe they could tie up with someone from that market. Yeah. And tying up, I think, will be better, in my opinion, because the local partner will have the exposure to the market, and he has the experience into the market. So it will be easier for the SME to feel more confident and to expand more than, I think, if government is going to help and to come into a joint venturing. Because actually what we are targeting as a government, as an organization, we are looking for the foreign direct investments into Oman.
To attract it.
Yes, to attract investments and to attract know-how, technology and these things.
Don't you think if you had a strong SME sector, a more transparent, I'm sorry, I'm going to something else, but more transparent SME sector, you can attract more FDI into the country?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, true.
Don't you think that if you could say, well, I have a certain industry or a sub-industry, and this is where we want to come to, because if you want to get out of the country, if you want to succeed in the country, the way I see it, you need to know what are the main industries. Don't compete in them. Then you look at the sub-industries, and that's where you either have a product or a service. You can provide the sub-industry gaps.
Yes.
If we manage to get this, we have enough studies, and I'm not marketing our company, but I'm just saying how people should think. We have marketing studies, for example, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Germany, and we know what gaps we can fill.
Yes.
All right, we know how competitive it is, but also we know how we can attract them and vice versa. All right. Now, what I'm trying to get to, I think, isn't it time? I love the model. It was in my mind. Isn't it time that we, as Oman, set up something like what they have, the AHK, something Omani, okay? Privatized, and that's why I want to ask him, because he's a private sector, they're a big conglomerate. We need to understand, if the government is already with you, as what you said, do you think that as a private sector, the government would support us, people, business people, you know, like Sherry's trying to do Startup Oman. Do you think it's time the government helps in that so we can help them?
Yes, I think it's the time, especially one of the audience when he was saying about the oil price fluctuations. So I think it's the time now. The government was looking a long time for diversifying the economy, but this could be also one of the tools if we are looking like for diversifying and going away from the oil. Maybe we could help such organizations if they are going to be in the private sector. As a government, maybe they could give them some sort of support, and even in terms of regulations and in terms of employment, in terms of attracting talent, maybe we could also, as a government, could help.
You want to add something?
Yeah, what I'd like to say, is it still working?
Yes.
What I'd like to say is, I don't disagree with the comments around the table, but essentially the government's role is to fill the gaps. So if you're starting off in business, going to another country, just you say, the government provides data, because you on your own, it'll cost you tens of thousands of whatevers to get the data, and you need that data. The government is there to, actually the government is there not to be there, to try and take away some of the constraints to allow you to invest without having to fill in a million forms. The private sector has a very important role to play, obviously, and again, this has been mentioned, but I'd just like to emphasize it. Most people going into business, and it just multiplies in spades if you're going into business in another country, they don't personally have all the skills. We might all like to think we're wonderful marketing people, finance people, IT people, but we are not. So what you need, and you can't afford to buy in all these people, and I thought the bait thing was very, very interesting, but there was a kind of implication you had to employ an IT, and I'm sure they didn't mean this, IT person, a finance person, HR person. You don't, but you do need mentorship. And if we could get together people with international experience, like Pankaj, organizations like Pattison, and when your organization, and people who, you know, don't want to make millions, but are very happy to help other people to understand how to do the bits of business that they don't understand, then I think we'll be really moving ourselves forward.
I wish we had more time, because this is what we wanted to get to. I mean, then if we go to the government with the regulations, we can talk about this later on, but I totally believe you. A lot of Omanis are willing to support pro bono. A lot of businessmen, I don't care, I could be pro bono. It's not about that. But I want to go back now to Pankaj. What do you think the private sector could do in this? If we talk, I mean, leave the pro bono part. I mean, I'm not sure everybody will do it.
Okay, hello? Yeah. I think, number one, we need to understand SME business is not just about providing services. it's also services to industry, services to government, but it also is the downstream from what we are producing in the country. I'd like to ask IFCO, have they promoted any downstream industry with the products that they're coming out with? I'd like to ask Jindal, out of the raw material that they produce in Oman, what further downstream industries are being encouraged in country? As what I understand, I'm not an industrialist, but as I understand, if you look at the SME culture in India, most of the SME culture is not an offshoot of government, but it's an offshoot of large industries. What they do with the raw material, down with the steel pipes, and they're manufacturing small tools, et cetera, we don't seem to understand that even our petrochemical plants do not have a downstream industry. We are only exporting raw material.
Yes.
So can we encourage small enterprises to produce downstream industries, to encourage these downstream industries over here itself? One. If we don't know what they are, then let's learn from our neighbors, from other countries which have got SMEs, and ask the LNGs of Oman, the ORPICs of Oman to say, can we please, in the next 5 years, can we have 10 industries that can flourish out of your byproducts? I think that's number one. Number two, going abroad and taking your products or services is frightful. What I'd like to understand, I'll be happy to take the product out, but have you ever thought about offshoring and outsourcing? We have today close to 800,000 Indian expatriates working here in Oman. Say 500,000 of them are working in the construction industry. Take them out. The balance of them are either blue collars or white collars in the accounting, in the services sectors. India has become the largest country for offshoring services. What is stopping an Omani company to set up an offshoring service for Omani industry to do all the back office work in India? Can I have a young Omani or a group of young Omani accountants or IT professionals to take back and work out of India and come back with lower wages, lower service charges? So I think those are the sectors that we need to identify. ITRA can help us identify what can be done overseas. And I think those are the kind of areas that I want young entrepreneurs to take abroad. Thank God I haven't done IT, otherwise I would have done it earlier, but I want somebody else to do it this time round, even for me.
I know.
Thank you.
I mean, when we do our websites, for example, we look at the prices in Oman, and then we offshore it always to India at the end of the day. Sorry to say this, but that's the truth. As a business, we need to cut costs. If an Omani company would charge me 2,000 riyals for a website that's not fully interactive, not fully adaptive, whatever we want, we offshore it to India, and they will do it for a fraction of the price. And now, why I say what you say is correct, because yesterday the CEO of Oman Air was talking about two things. He spoke about two sub-industries, and he discussed the matter of printing their cards, the Sindibad royalty card, and he wanted to do it in Oman, but it's outsourced to Dubai. And then he spoke about toothbrushes. They need 2 million toothbrushes. Now, that's what you need to identify as entrepreneurs or SMEs.
ORPIC. That's where ORPIC comes in, the PET factory that is coming in. The PET factory that is coming in should produce all the plastics and the consumables for Oman Air.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like what you said, we need to identify sub-industries that Omanis can flourish at, but then also get out. Now, our last point, so we can go to the Q&A and wrap it up quickly. Do you think creating, I mean, yesterday Shell was talking about they take 100 students and they pick the best 25 ideas, the brightest ideas. Do you think adapting some sort, not of a competition, but the same sort, but government supported, and building an elite class of entrepreneurs, elite class? Because living in Dubai, I look at their Business Week magazine, I look at their Forbes Middle East, and whenever they come up with their yearly most powerful or innovative 100 entrepreneurs in the region, you never see an Omani, never. You never see an Omani on it. It's mostly from the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, you know what I'm saying? Do you think sponsoring such certain bright people from private sector and government would create this elite that we can then help them export outside. What do you guys think? I mean,
can I just make a comment? Because I'm kind of cognizant of the fact that I'm looking into the eyes of a whole bunch of very young entrepreneurs who probably are not going to go into the oil and gas industry and do a down. That's just my sense, having kicked around here for a while. I think some of the problem with this beyond our border issue is you have to instill in people that you can do business outside easily. It's hard when you go with a manufactured product. It's very difficult. But it is not difficult to have a service. You create a website. I mean, 80% of the Omani SMEs that I talk to don't even have a website. How can we expect people to think globally if they don't have a website? So I want to start at the basic level. I want Omanis who are SMEs to understand baby steps. First, please, can we get you on the interweb? Let's get you out there. Let's get the eyes looking at you. I think part of the reason why Omanis don't hit these various recognition programs is because it is a very, to your point, it's a very encapsulated little world here. It's a fabulous bubble, but it's a bubble. And I think that we need to get people to think about going out, and it's easy.
I met a lot of people during the summit, and I met some people before even the summit, few. And I found some of them are very aggressive. I mean, yesterday we saw Mariam Al-Amri. I wish she was here today. I would have wanted her here. That's the aggressiveness you want to see in Omanis. I mean, you didn't see her, but she was extremely aggressive, okay? Now, that's the mentality you want. Somebody with a vision, although she lost all her partners. She built herself by herself, 5 years on the line after she started, and she was very aggressive. And she asked the audience one question. She said, are you willing to invest your own money in my business? See, now that's what you need to do, all right? And I believe you, because I don't know how Oman is, because I mean, I've been away for 5 years, but usually when I meet anybody, the first thing I do after I leave is I Google his name, I Google his company, all right? To know that they're for real. The first thing I do. Now imagine everybody would do the same, all right? So once you're online, you've already started the first step.
Yeah.
The second step for Omanis, you need to think about personality branding. How do you brand yourself? Who are you, all right, if you want to get out of the border, okay? So just to wrap it up quickly into the Q&A, what you need to think about is, how do I get out? There are no borders online anymore. You can sell your services online. Monopolies are starting to fade because the free trade agreement, you can buy, like what he said, Mr. Nick, you can buy anything online and sell it in Oman. I mean, one of my companies does that now in Oman. We just started today, we got our first product, all right? It's so easy, all right? Have a PO box in the US, ship it to it, and sell it. Start like that, start small. A lot of girls in Oman, I was shocked, they're already selling on Instagram, and they're making good money. Now that's a business. All right? A lot of girls are doing abaya. I know yesterday Mr. Adil, I think, he was against it. No, don't be against it, okay? Have something that you're passionate about, market it. Instagram, Twitter, Facebooks, they don't have borders, all right? You can do Facebook advertisement. I mean, I'm not going to go into marketing study now or how to do your own marketing, but you can go online. The gentleman before us was talking about online courses. There are a lot of courses that are for free. Harvard, for example, now, they have their own what they call EX program. It's for free courses, and that's Harvard, all right? And they will teach you how to do proper marketing, okay? And remember, now, it's almost like a war. That's why in the US, when they teach you business, they teach you the book of Sun Tzu, The Art of War. They want you to understand being in business is a scary thing, but the thrill is worth it, all right? I remember the first time I made my first money in the UAE. And I still keep it with me, that 500 dirhams in my pocket. So every time I open my wallet, I just see it and I remember my dream. Now that's what you need to be passionate about, right? I would thank the panel. Now we'll go for Q&A quite fast so we can wrap it up. So anybody with questions? Sidi.
Thanks. I seem to be hogging the mic these couple of days by virtue of being the chairman. Something that worries me about the discussion, and I'd like to challenge all of you on this, is while I agree that Oman has focused, SMEs have focused on services, and that's a strong point to some extent, But it worries me as we're looking towards beyond 2020 and creating wealth. There is very little talk about pushing some of our SMEs aggressively towards manufacturing. And we don't have to manufacture a car. We could be in the component. We could stick ourselves into the supply chain, the downstream. I think we really need a very strong push towards that, because what is our deficit if we didn't have oil? It'll be approximately between 7 to 9 billion Omani riyals.
Yep.
All right, if not more coming down the road, right? And we're very lucky with the oil prices at the time, but now we're getting to a point where our current account is going into deficit and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. We need to produce something. I was listening a while back to an interview on the BBC or something, and this was a British businesswoman who asked the question, if we're all going online and creating apps and providing services, who is going to produce the things we want?
Of course.
Right? It's not going to be just China, and it's not going to be Brazil or Turkey or South Africa or wherever. We have to be able to produce what we're competitively advantaged in. We can't keep shying away from that. Yes, there are brilliant ideas that students are coming with through Injaz Oman and these other competitions, right? We want to see some of those products develop in Oman and then move overseas, and we should not shy away from that. If it fails, it fails. And I might disagree with you that we don't have to go beyond borders to succeed, but let's at least try using the information you have, you know? Whether it's a new way of doing these PET bottles or, you know, perhaps an unbreakable glass of some sort, it doesn't really matter as long as we keep at it and we keep trying, because Oman needs that.
Yep.
We can't all be selling services. We can't be all doing logistics. There are limitations to this. And we know that the value added in some of these services isn't as significant. And you know, there are only so many niches that we can fit ourselves in. So we need to produce something, and SMEs can well fit into those supply chains, I believe.
My question is, I agree with you. The only thing, I mean, I would allow also the panel to contribute. How would you know what sub-industries, what gaps to fill if there were not enough studies about it, all right? If I go now tomorrow to ITHRA, and I would say, like what you just said, in automobile. Now I know ITHRA on their website, they have certain industries that they're trying to promote and attract FDIs into, right? Now, I agree with that. But once you get the FDI, who's going to run that? But if you promoted that as a sub-industry, like what you said, downstream, not necessarily in oil and gas, because you cannot depend on that for after 10, 15 years. You want sustainability. But if you go into sub-industries, and that comes into value chain analysis. And when I talk about moving out of Oman, I'm not meaning you move out of Oman. For example, events management, all right? You need to understand where gaps are. You need to be adaptable. Now, they always said survivor of the fittest. I don't believe in that anymore. I think it's survivable of the most adaptable person. You need to adapt, all right? But as Oman, you're absolutely correct. Logistics, agencies and all that, I mean, yes, it built a big empire. But nowadays, with this free trade, with online market, you know, buying, purchasing, you know, you will start seeing these agencies fading because you can buy stuff now. You know, people are buying cars and they're selling it now in Oman, brand new cars. You know, they're competing with the dealers. But what you said is absolutely correct. We require the government or the private sector, as I said, you know, have some sort of a joint venture, you know, where we as a private sector discuss what they think are the gaps in manufacturing, especially manufacturing. Coming back to the competitive advantage of Oman, we have a lot of raw materials, you know. We have a lot of metals that are produced, you know, they are under the ground in Oman. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, when he came in 1973, he had an article with the Kuwaiti magazine. And he was mentioning what Oman has other than oil, all right, in terms of iron, in terms of copper, in terms of extra stuff. Now, if we can go downstream, like what you said, for example, automobile, let's go manufacture the bolts, you know, stuff that are in Oman. But that for the entrepreneurs here and SMEs to know, government needs to tell them. Not necessarily ISRA. ISRA is more onto FDI bringing. But that can work well, because if a Omani tomorrow comes with a project and he needs finance, and SME Development Fund won't finance Greenfield, for example, all right? Where would he go? I know we do, but I'm just saying an example. Where would he go? But if he goes to ISRA, and I believe they do that already, because we're coming to you very soon, but I think they will recommend you who to go to. They will support you. Now, I'm sorry to keep comparing. It's not comparison. In Dubai, when the financial crisis happened, you know, Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation had no money. They had no money. You know how they supported entrepreneurs? With what ISRA is roughly doing now. because we were consultants to them. They would pay a consultant for you to do your business plan. You don't pay for it. And then they will mentor you. They have an incubator in Business Village opposite Indira. But then what they do, once they see your product, they give you recommendation letters to semi-government companies, to government agencies. What are you selling? All right? And they support you with that. Now, I know we have the public authorities trying to do that, but you're right. What about industry? What about manufacturing? You need to diversify economy. You have an industrial platform you can use.
I'd very much
Please,
like to
go ahead.
endorse what the chairman is saying. There are truck and bus companies that are looking at assembling here, and we're all trying to encourage them to come in. You've got a superb logistical base, and it'll be even more superb in the future. You've got to have manufacturing here, but there are two big problems. And they've got to be recognized, and one's got to find one's way around it. Nothing to do with the laws or anything. One is to do with the fact that Oman still believes it's a low-wage economy. It therefore throws people at solutions, not money at solutions. We have got to get out of that way of thinking. We have got to become, if you like, and I'm not saying it's because it's better, but we've been through it, more like a Western economy, where you have high productivity through capital investment. You then have less people, they will be Omanis, they'll be working in better conditions, and they will be paid more. So until you get that right, and the other one, which I hesitate perhaps to mention, the bankers are present, the rial has been fixed to the dollar since 1986. That's an issue for exports.
That's quite strategic stuff, depegging the rial from the dollar. But I agree with you, I mean, with the change. But anybody has anything to add, please?
One more thing to what Johannes just mentioned is we talk about SMEs in Oman being more inclined towards services, and I'd like to understand what the event management company over here does. But let's look beyond the border. Look at India being a 1.2 billion market. It's today corporates in India, wedding planners in India, have found Oman to be the new buzz destination. It's cheaper for them to fly from Mumbai to Muscat than it is to fly from Mumbai to Delhi. The hotels here are more affordable than the hotels in Delhi of a 5-star or similar level. Can we work on that? I know that Ministry of Tourism invited a lot of event management companies and wedding planners to come to Oman, but they didn't set them up with the local SME event management companies here. So there was a miss. Can we do this networking again?
I think, what you're saying is correct. I mean, I don't know if I'm correct. Somebody correct me. Does our Chamber of Commerce or Ministry of Commerce issues a yearly book?
Ministry of Commerce was not involved in this. So it's individual ministries.
That's what I'm saying.
Who are going on a track. Tourism Ministry goes and does a tourism thing abroad, but doesn't involve the local players over here who give all the support services.
Okay.
It's a huge export. You don't realize that. It's the biggest revenue earner.
You see, I remember
Event management.
I understand. I mean, I remember once somebody was saying, and Your Highness, you replied to them when they were talking about 900,000 tourists that came into Oman. And I think that your comments were so right, okay? It's not about how many tourists came to Oman or through Oman. It's what was the purchasing power of those tourists. What services did they use? I mean, was it a wedding that they came as a tourist and then they used, I think, his services as an event planner? This is what we need to do. But don't you think for them to know when ministry, see, unfortunately, I mean, I'm going to be so frank, all right? We don't have synergy, all right? We don't have synergy within ministries. We don't have synergy because, like you correctly said, every ministry operates by themselves in their own.
So if we have some sort of a body or an authority along with ITHRA, and we form some sort of a board, can the board then guide the SMEs and putting A, B, and C together and telling the ministries
what to do? This is what we
do?
want to come up with.
We had a perfect example earlier on with the German experience.
Yes.
We're waiting for ITHRA to take the lead with their 23, I think, representative offices, or 22 representative offices abroad. But their mandate is very specific. It is not SME specific. It is not large company specific. It is Oman specific, right?
Strategic.
In the last few years, we've had the Dutch visit us, and they have a very interesting model. of running the whole economy, the country, and whatnot. One of the things we noticed was that they had a chamber of commerce for small and medium enterprises. And then they had a chamber of commerce for the other set of enterprises. And each one of them had an agenda. And they pushed forward hard for that agenda. They invested into being wherever they needed to be. They didn't wait for the government to provide resources unless it was essentially crucial. But if it's not driven by those stakeholders who are affected by whatever circumstances, entering a market, exporting or importing, whatever it is you want to do, it's never going to work, because we're constantly hearing, what is the government going to do, rather than saying, what are SMEs together going to do? If they need resources, by all means, provide them, but they need to be the ones traveling. If you don't have the right resources, perhaps the government could subsidize some of those things, but the government should not be leading that all the time. Where necessary and in competencies, I totally agree. But how about we see a chamber of commerce, not a committee, but a chamber of commerce for SMEs?
How can you do that? I mean, the private sector is happy to do it. He's just said. I mean, you can have a board of directors, board of advisors, for example.
We could have a complete separate and independent chapter within the OCCI in Oman.
But currently, what happens in OCCI? Who runs the committee? One of the larger family group members, correct? How do they see eye to eye to what we hear today here? This is not to discredit the individuals, that some of them work very hard. But for you, for example, in universities, student councils are run by students.
Yes.
Right? Because they know what they want, and they will lobby for what they want. SMEs need to be treated the same way, right? You need to have SMEs heading SME chapters or whatever it is. They should be able to open offices wherever they need to, right, within the right legal framework. They should be adequately funded by the SMEs and perhaps assisted by government as well. We can't expect them to be able to provide. I mean, if we do that, then I think we have a more viable model of going beyond the border.
How do we implement your idea? Okay, I fully agree. How do we implement your idea? How do we come as SMEs, as people that have leave being from big families? I mean, like you said, some people come from big families, but they worked as hard as a single entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. But remember, because they come from big families, because they traveled a lot, they might fill that gap of the cultural part, and they might be good mentors. Now, you can have normal SME leaders, entrepreneurs who are innovative and put them as well in there. You can have two boards of director that comes all from like council, student council, and you can have a board of advisors, and those are businessmen or business people. But then how do you go along with the government? How do you register such a place?
You see, one of the things is, let's use the existing tools. We're always looking to reinvent the wheel, right? We need a new agency, and we need blah, blah, blah. Empower Amman Chamber of Commerce in the first place, rather than being a quasi-government organization. It needs to be a business organization, makes its own decision, funds itself, right, by willing partner. If we find, as small businesses pay 100 to 200 riyals annual fees for the Chamber of Commerce, what do they get out of it?
Nothing.
Exactly, right? Now, if I find that the Chamber of Commerce or this entity that I pay any dues to is lobbying hard for what I need, it's using information to open new market, provide me with studies, I'll pay twice as much for that as a small business or a large business. It doesn't really matter. Empower the existing agencies, right? Instead of having a committee, have a chapter perhaps, have representative offices specifically. Perhaps it won't amount to much the first few years, but what you'll get is momentum, importance. So a lot of people are looking for empowerment through existing institutions. Let's not try and build, extra institutions that don't work very well. I mean, we've heard the example of the German. Some of the other we've got cities in China opening commercial offices, not the Chinese authorities, but cities in China, right? Who funds those? Could be central government, could be city itself, whatever it is. But they're being proactive. We can't expect SMEs to reach anywhere. The aggression you talked about, the young lady earlier on, without SMEs themselves being aggressive.
I understand you, but see, the difference about the German experience is not government. That's the secret. Once you go into government, you go into bureaucracies. Absolutely. All right? You can decide this, you can decide this, you can do this, you can do this. But when you're private sector, and this is where His Majesty spoke about it, he wanted the private sector to support the public sector to grow Oman, all right? But until you empower, as you said, but actually empower the private sector in this country, you cannot do anything, all right? If you depend, they have a lot of responsibilities as government, and their look is strategic. They want to bring FDIs, they want to promote Oman as a country. But you're right, if you have a special council for SMEs, then you can do this. Talking about the Chamber of Commerce, I'm not criticizing them. I know criticizing people is so easy, but like you said, you pay 100, 200 riyals, you get nothing. I know of a country, you pay 120 riyals a year, and what you get is one luncheon every month where they invite the minister to come and talk to you. Everybody goes. They have one breakfast every month where everybody goes, ministers, bankers, CEOs. They have workshops, and all this is for free. For that 120 riyals a year, all right? Now, the Chamber of Commerce of Oman might not do this, but how do we reach them? Because today, you see what they said yesterday, we're done with talk. I mean, people started leaving after lunch, right? Because I'm being very honest. People don't want to hear more talk. They want to see action. What action can we, as a private sector, you have people that are willing. You know what I mean? You have people that already started, like Sherry. She started Startup Oman. She started Mujtama'i. I looked at it. It's a very good initiative. How do we tell? Because some entrepreneurs are fed up. I'll tell you the truth. I mean, we are trying to set up a company. And I told them, I don't want a PRO. I want to go try the system myself. It's been 3 months now, and I can't even start, all right? Because of bureaucracy, all right? Because of bureaucracy. Why, when they say, I spent 6 months, I spoke with Sherry the other day, do you think having a manual, I mean, such simple things. Having a manual produced by the ministries, Synergy, to tell you, you pay 5 riyal for it. Add it, Yahi, on the commercial register when I buy it. I'm happy to pay even 20 riyals for it. But give me a manual that I know point A, point B, rather than me going here, there, and everybody kicks you out. You know, you forgot this paper. You never told me about the paper. That's frustration. Entrepreneurs get frustrated before they even start. I mean, I sat down with Sherry, we had this talk. And unfortunately, I also sat down with some entrepreneurs, in and out, and they're so frustrated. They have a problem. Now, coming back to yesterday, they criticized about Omanization. Now, if you register, and I don't know if you guys know, if you register the public authority for SME, you're given a holiday of 2 years. Okay, so you don't need to have Omanis for 2 years, all right? So, Allah income. So basically for 2 years, you can have a break, all right? Funding, Oman. There are competitive advantages in Oman. First of all, cost of capital, I spoke about it yesterday. You have a minimum, extremely low cost of capital, all right? But again, why do we keep going into services, like he said? Why do we keep going into, I don't know, I look at it as services. Buying retail, you know what I mean? We don't have people that think, I mean, service is very important, all right? But why we don't talk about industrial, you know? Go manufacture something. Get us an idea, all right? It doesn't have to be multi-million riyals. We have enough funds to finance. I mean, you guys finance from 50,000 all the way up, correct? You have ODB, they finance up to 1 million riyal. And then you have Oman Brunei Fund, I know a lot of people don't even know it exists, and they give you up to 2 million riyal. You have OIF, they give you up to, from 10 million riyal and above, they're 1.2 billion, all right? So, yes, but how do you promote this? Where is the agency that goes and looks for SMEs? I mean, we spoke about accelerators. How do we promote to young people over here that there is a sub-industry in our mind? Do you want to come and invest your effort in it?
If you allow me, some of the work that Nasima and our colleagues do is not often published to all stakeholders. It might be on their website. It might be in a link, under a link, under a link, under a link, right? Which I don't know about. They're working very hard at promoting their activities. I follow them on Twitter and I see a lot of their work. There are a lot of their engagement at multiple levels, mind you. It's not just at the investment export, but even at the workplace recently with running the workplace conversations, as it were. But the thing is, a lot of SMEs will benefit if this information is on the table for all of us to take advantage of. You've mentioned the point of spending millions or thousands just to get a small market study. Yeah. You know, one of the things we all preach from early on learning, you know, about how to run your business is do market research. You cannot do market research in Oman because the information is not out there. Yes. There's an outdated guide at OCCI about doing business in Oman, but a lot of those regulations change. The labor law has just recently changed. Yeah. We need updates. The e-government website has a lot of information, but navigating that information is very, very difficult. I would rather it cater to my need rather than me having to cater for what the structure the ITA has put in on that website. The information is out there. It's just everywhere. It's not in the single, easily accessible piece. So we've got this Easy Invest website that has really been developed. it's the paperwork turned online, that's it, right? We need more than that for businesses. I need to know the information that ITHRA has, I need the information that OCCI has, I need the information the Sultan Qaboos University has researched and found that, you know what, Oman's economy is going to grow at X number percent, whatever is the earlier comment. How do oil prices affect us, right? We know government spending, we know contracting, et cetera, tendering, whatnot. All of that information needs to be out there available. Media has a role to play, organizations, you know, whichever, private, public, civil society. We've got labor unions that are not advocating the right things.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think having an SME union
Have a chapter.
would help?
Have an SME chapter.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
a chapter or an actual union. If you have a union and you have speakers from that union that would go, for example, for the Ministry of Manpower, the minister would never say no. His Excellency will never turn you back, but not as one person talking about something. You go representing the SME as a union. Okay? Now, I'm new to this, so I don't know how do you register a union in Oman, and can you register an SME union? I know now the universities are doing it. They have their own union, correct? They have their own union. They never had a union. Now they have a union with a chairman who speaks in one voice.
You can register an association.
Well, this is what SMEs need to do. I mean, SMEs can sit down together, all right, come up with a union and agree on what they want. They're talking about labor laws. You go and meet the labor minister. I think this is something we can come up with from this summit, a recommendation that we come up with an SME, just like what you said, an SME. One more thing, because I know everybody's hungry. Do you think privatizing it, and this is a point I had all my life here, I don't want to go into what happened with the e-government, what happened with the portal. Do you think if that was privatized, it would have been done faster as a private sector? Do you think it would have been faster?
How capable is our private sector? We keep talking about empowering our private sector and enabling it for 45 years, right? And we still don't trust our private sector.
But I'll tell you one thing.
And I'm not saying the private sector can't do it efficiently. All I'm saying is, if we don't trust SMEs and we don't trust the larger corps to do it in Oman, you know, and we have to import oral solutions from elsewhere, then how is privatization
That's what I'm trying
a
to say.
viable option?
If tomorrow I go to the SME Development Fund and I say, I want a 1 million riyal, we're a bunch of businessmen, we want to start a government online. We want to synergize, integrate all the government's websites. There are 5. I was shocked. You need 5 passwords. For every ministry, you need a password, okay? If we manage to get this all in one line, you know, because the private sector will make money. Look, I'm sorry I'm giving you too much and we will go. Look at the radars, the road radars, the cameras. They're privatized. The police would have never paid that money, all right? So what you do is a private sector doing it, financed by a government fund, all right? There is a return out of it, all right? But those are types of recommendations we need to come with. But how do you do it? I mean, I don't understand. Tell me. Yes. So anyway, I think we spoke too much. If you have questions, you can ask us outside, all right? Thanks a lot. Thank you, guys. Let's go.